Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS English, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Since October 7th, 2023, that is the day on which Hamas carried out a deadly terror attack against Israel, the conflict in West Asia has been escalating day by day, week after week, month after month. Following this attack by Hamas, Israel went to war in Gaza, triggering the Gaza conflict. Iran has activated its proxies across the region, widening the conflict, and Israel has been retaliating not just against Iran but also against all the proxies of Iran. This widespread conflict has started escalating month after month, and yesterday we had a stunning, unprecedented development in Lebanon and as well as in Syria. I'm sure by now most of you are aware as to what happened in Lebanon and Syria. Yesterday evening, close to 3,000 simultaneous explosions were reported across Lebanon and few in Syria as well. These explosions have been traced to pager devices, which is an obsolete, outdated communication tool, which was widely used by Hezbollah fighters. So Hezbollah has come under this attack, and according to reports, more than 9 Hezbollah fighters, including some children, have been reported dead, with more than 2,800 injuries. This deadly attack is not only unprecedented, but the scale is unbelievable. Fingers have naturally been pointed at Israel, as Israel and Hezbollah have a history of rivalry and conflict between them. So in this session, we shall explore this important development in complete detail. Hezbollah has blamed the attacks on Israel, and it has already sworn to retaliate and take revenge against Israel. Just before I started this session, we got reports that Hezbollah apparently has already begun the retaliation as well, and apparently Hezbollah drones have been spotted in Israeli airspace. So while we still confirm and verify these reports, it is very critical to examine these developments, and in this session, we will focus on all the key points that are necessary for our exam. So assuming that many of the viewers could be beginners, I will start from the very basic points. First, you need to understand what is Hezbollah. We should also look at the details of the attack and why exactly Hezbollah was using pagers in today's world. In today's world of ultra-fast communication, why was Hezbollah dependent on outdated pagers? And can pagers be hacked and exploded as it has been initially estimated? And who could be behind the attacks? Is Israel really involved as it has been alleged? Does Israel have those capabilities? And are there any past incidents similar to this which indicates possible Israeli involvement? And what are the implications of this deadly attack? Will the conflict escalate? Will Hezbollah retaliate? And will the conflict widen? Because the Gaza war has already claimed the lives of more than 40,000 Palestinians. Now, if the war were to escalate towards the northern borders of Israel into southern Lebanon, as Israel and Hezbollah face off each other, this could result in a humanitarian tragedy that could destabilize the entire region and the world as well. So there are deep implications for India, and hence we need to understand all these topics and developments. Now, at the end of the session, I'm going to raise one very important question with regard to international humanitarian law related to these attacks. So I want you to watch the entire video and wait till the end where I bring up this question, because this question has not been raised by your mainstream media and several other analysts. So if you want to know what is that point, stay till the end and watch the full video. And if you guys are liking our initiatives, do support us with your likes, your comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So let's begin the discussion by first understanding what is Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a radical extremist political outfit based out of Lebanon, and it has its own military wing which has been involved in militant attacks. So several countries look at Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, but some countries look at Hezbollah as a revolutionary liberation force, a revolutionary militant organization fighting against the alleged atrocities of Israel. So it is a controversial topic, but as always, we will remain unbiased during this discussion. So it is an established fact that Hezbollah is a radical extremist political outfit which has considerable political influence in Lebanon and across the region. It was founded in the early 1980s in Lebanon, and it has a very strong presence in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, and as well as in southern Lebanon, the region that borders northern Israel, and Golan Heights of Syria, which has been occupied by Israel. If you look at the map here, you can see the country of Lebanon. It faces the Mediterranean Sea to its west, and to its south you have Israel. So there is a history of tensions and conflict between Hezbollah and Israel along this border towards the northern borders of Israel and the southern part of Lebanon. And right next to it, you can see the Golan Heights, which is Syrian territory, which is under the illegal occupation of Israel. During the Six-Day War, the Arab-Israel War of 1967, Israel annexed and occupied Golan Heights, which is seen as an illegal occupation by the international community, including by United Nations and by countries like India. So across this region, Hezbollah is very active. Even in Syria, Hezbollah has a major presence. It has branches in Iraq as well. So this extremist outfit, its military arm, primarily targets Israeli interests and as well as American interests. As United States is the primary backer of Israel, both Israeli and American targets in this region is targeted and attacked by Hezbollah. So Hezbollah has played a critical role in Lebanon's politics as well. In 1992, Hezbollah entered the politics of Lebanon. It has contested elections as well. That's why I said it is an extremist radical political force, essentially a Shia Islamist organization, and it is seen as a proxy of regional Shia power, that is Iran. Iran is seen as the primary sponsorer of Hezbollah, and even Syria, which is ruled by President Bashar al-Assad, who belongs to the Alawite sect, a sect within Shia Islam, is seen as a Shia leader aligned with Iran. So both Iran and Syria represent the Shia power bloc in the region, and their rivalries with the Sunni power bloc and with Israel and United States is well known. So Iran and Syria together have supported several such proxy extremist organizations, including Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. So Hezbollah has carried out several attacks against Israel and United States. In fact, if you look at its establishment in the 1980s, it was mainly triggered by Israel's occupation of southern Lebanon. As a result of the Israel-Palestine conflict and Israel's conflicts with the neighboring Arab powers, Israel had invaded Lebanon, occupied parts of southern Lebanon in 1970s, 1980s. It was in this context that Hezbollah was born as a militant organization, contested elections, and today it's a political organization, and it has its own militant branch that mainly attacks Israel and United States. Now, I told you that some countries look at Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. The United States, for example, has designated Hezbollah as a foreign terrorist organization. Most of the Western powers, which are aligned with the United States, they all list Hezbollah as a global terrorist organization. And of course, Israel also looks at Hezbollah as a terrorist outfit because Hezbollah primarily attacks Israel. There are few other American allies across the region which also look at Hezbollah and designate Hezbollah as a terrorist outfit. But many other countries don't look at Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. They look at Hezbollah as a radical political entity or a liberation revolutionary force. If you look at India, for example, which has taken a very balanced position on the Israel-Palestine conflict, we have not designated Hezbollah as a terrorist entity. In fact, the same holds for Hamas, and I've mentioned this in our previous sessions. India has not officially designated Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorist organizations, but we do look at them as radical extremist outfits. In fact, Hezbollah has been in a constant state of conflict with Israel. In 1980s, 1990s, Hezbollah carried out major attacks against Israeli-American targets. In early 2000, Hezbollah launched a major attack on Israel, and Israel went to war, triggering the Lebanese War of 2006, which affected India quite severely. Thousands of Indian nationals were trapped in Lebanon in 2006, when this war broke out between Israel and Hezbollah. And India had to carry out an evacuation mission called Operation Sukoon. Fortunately for India, 3 Indian naval vessels were present in the nearby region. In the Mediterranean, Indian Navy was taking part in a military exercise with friendly countries, and these naval ships were returning back through the Suez Canal. So as the war broke out in Lebanon and thousands of Indians were trapped, immediately these naval vessels were diverted towards Lebanon to rescue the Indians and as well as several foreign nationals. So that is why these developments that happen in West Asia is of critical importance for India, because we have major stakes in the region. Many countries here are critical for us for our oil and gas supplies to ensure our energy security. Across this region, we have a very strong diaspora. More than 10 million Indians can be found across this region. So their safety, well-being is a constant concern for India given the instability, the conflicts and the volatility in the region. Now, who heads this organization and how powerful is Hezbollah? According to experts, Hezbollah is one of the most well-armed, well-funded extremist organizations in the world. According to reports, its strength is anywhere between 20,000 fighters to almost 1 lakh fighters. Hezbollah claims that it has 1 lakh well-trained, battle-hardened fighters. Several intelligence reports from Western countries place the numbers somewhere around 20 to 50,000 fighters. But either ways, it's very clear that Hezbollah has a considerable presence in the region, and it also enjoys a lot of support. Hezbollah plays a critical role in the politics and the economy of Lebanon as well. It's almost like a parallel government in Lebanon, and it is well armed. It not only has thousands of rockets in its arsenal, it also has access to anti-aircraft missiles, anti-ship missiles, and even guided bombs and missiles. So obviously, Iran, which backs this outfit, has supplied Hezbollah with advanced weaponry, and counterterrorism experts consider Hezbollah to be more well-equipped and well-armed than even Hamas. Hamas usually has a rudimentary arsenal made up of very rudimentary rockets, but Hezbollah, in comparison, has more sophisticated weapons in its arsenal, from unguided rockets to even guided missiles, anti-aircraft, anti-ship missiles, which makes Hezbollah a dreaded extremist outfit in the region. This outfit is headed by Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. You can see him in the image over here. He started heading this outfit from 1992, ever since it entered the politics of Lebanon. So this radical Shia cleric is very closely aligned with Iran, and he is considered to be extremely close to Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah al-Khamenei. So that explains the close links between Iran and Hezbollah. There are direct links between the state of Iran and the non-state outfit, which is Hezbollah. So now, let's take a look at Iranian proxies in the region. Why Iran has cultivated so many proxy groups. See, this is part of Iran's covert war against Israel and United States. Iran considers Israel as its enemy. It has sworn death to Israel. It has sworn to wipe out Israel from the map in support of the Palestinian cause. And as United States backs Israel and the US has targeted Iran since 1979, since the Islamic Revolution in Iran, US has been an arch rival of Iran, and both have been targeting each other. Iran considers the Sunni power bloc as a threat. The Sunni power bloc headed by Saudi Arabia and its allies. They share intense geopolitical rivalry and hostility with the Shia power bloc led by Iran and Syria. So these are the dynamics, the equations present in the region. So to protect Iranian interests and to target the enemies of Iran, Iran has cultivated several proxy groups, extremist organizations, as part of its covert war. In a way, just like Pakistan, how its state agencies fund and sponsor and train non-state actors against India and create anti-India terrorist groups to target India. On similar lines, Iran has been waging this covert war. But of course, there are no saints in this conflict. It's a much deeper and complex conflict, as Israel, US, its allies, and even the Sunni powers here have been involved in such covert conflicts to target Iran and its allies. So in the region, Iran has cultivated three major proxies. I'm sure all of you know about Hamas and as well as Islamic Jihad, which operates in the Gaza Strip of Palestine, where the current war is concentrated. Then you have Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, and its branches such as Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq. Ever since the Gaza war broke out last October, since then Iran has activated all these proxies to support Hamas and the Palestinian cause. So while Israel targets Hamas in Gaza, and while Israel stands accused of committing human rights violations against Palestinians by using disproportionate force, Iran has been using proxies like Hezbollah and Kataib Hezbollah to launch attacks from Lebanon, Syria, and even from Iraq. In the recent months, there have been attacks on American military troops and bases originating from Syria and Iraq. There have been attacks originating from Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq aimed at Israel as well. Right? So this is part of Iran's covert war in the region. And of course, all of you have heard about the Houthis of Yemen. The Houthis are yet another proxy outfit cultivated, funded, supported, and trained by Iran. So essentially, the Yemeni government was aligned with Saudi Arabia, with the Sunni power bloc. So as the Sunni power bloc aligned with Israel and US and targeted Iran, especially after the Arab Spring movement of 2010-2011, Iran scaled its covert war and toppled the regime in Yemen by backing the Houthi rebels. So today the Houthis control most of Yemen since 2014. Even here, when the civil war broke out, thousands of Indians were trapped and India carried out an evacuation mission to rescue the Indians and even some foreign nationals. Now, can you tell me what was the name of this, the code name of this evacuation mission that India carried out in Yemen in 2014-2015? Please let me know in the comments. So these are the various proxies of Iran. So ever since the Gaza war broke out last October, the Houthis also have been pressed into action by Iran. So the Houthi rebels have been targeting commercial ships passing through Red Sea and Arabian Sea, which is a vital shipping lane near Gulf of Aden and Horn of Africa and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait over here, which is a choke point, which is a vital shipping lane that connects Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean and the Europe. The commercial ships passing through the region, especially those ships linked with Israel and US, have been targeted by the Houthis. These attacks have destabilized shipping in this critical waterway. It has affected India as well, as few ships headed towards India have been targeted. A few Indian vessels also have taken the hit, and the cost of shipping has gone up as many commercial ships have been diverted from this route and they are taking the longer route by circumnavigating across Africa. So Iranian proxies have had a deadly impact in this war. Of late, the Houthis have been launching long-range missile attacks into Israel. Just recently, just a couple of days ago, a long-range missile was fired from Yemen, which hit Tel Aviv, apparently, and Israel denies these reports, but Houthis have claimed a missile attack in Israel. So from all the corners, Iran has been activating and using the proxies to target Israel, while Israel retaliates against the proxies, and in fact, Israel-Iran have even gotten into a direct confrontation. A few months ago, we discussed this development as well, where Israel-Iran traded missiles against each other. Israel essentially assassinated a few IRGC officials, which is the paramilitary intelligence agency of Iran that sponsors these covert organizations. A few top IRGC operatives in Syria who were working in the Iranian consulate, they were targeted by an Israeli airstrike. And Iran retaliated by launching hundreds of drones and rockets and missiles aimed at Israel. So this entire development of the last 1 year has completely destabilized the region, and now we are seeing the next escalation happening in the region. In fact, Hezbollah joined this conflict right from the beginning. As Israel launched the war into Gaza to target Hamas, immediately all the proxies of Iran declared support to Hamas and the people of Palestine. The Houthis from Yemen started launching attacks against the ships in Red Sea, started launching attacks against Israel and American targets, and parallelly Hezbollah from Lebanon opened a front towards the Israel-Lebanon border. So over the last few months, Hezbollah has fired thousands of rockets, missiles and armed drones from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. You can look at the image over here which depicts the scale of the attacks. In fact, several Israelis have been killed. Several Israeli villages and towns in northern Israel have been completely evacuated and the people here have been displaced. Israel also has retaliated, launching attacks into Beirut and southern Lebanon, and it has killed hundreds of Lebanese, including several Hezbollah fighters. So this is a conflict which has escalated day by day, and what we saw yesterday was something that was completely unprecedented. It was something of a different scale, a different level. Now, prior to yesterday's attack, the pager attack, there was one more development. A few months ago, Hezbollah carried out a major missile strike in the Golan Heights, which I showed you in the map earlier. I told you it's a Syrian territory under the illegal occupation of Israel. So allegedly, as alleged by Israel, Hezbollah launched a missile attack that hit a playground where several children from a local ethnic community were killed. Following this deadly attack, which was blamed on Hezbollah, Israel retaliated with a major strike in Beirut, in the capital of Lebanon, and it took out one of the top commanders of Hezbollah, vowed, who is considered to be one of the key founders of Hezbollah's armed wing, considered as the second in command of Hezbollah, was assassinated by an Israeli military operation. Israel claimed the operation as well, and this was a major setback for Hezbollah. So Hezbollah was waiting for revenge. In a similar covert operation, Israel took out the chief of Hamas in Iran, and I'll come to that point a little later. So these high-profile attacks by Israel, where it took out the chief of Hamas and the second in command of Hezbollah, had instigated Iran, and Iran was waiting for revenge. Iran had sworn to retaliate as well. So this conflict has been continuing, it has been scaling up, and yesterday we saw the unprecedented happen in Lebanon and Syria. Within a short span of time, almost simultaneous explosions were reported across Lebanon and Syria, in supermarkets, in the city streets, in crowded marketplaces, across the country, in Beirut and also in southern Lebanon and in parts of Syria. Thousands of explosions were reported, and all the explosions have been traced to the pagers which are used by Hezbollah members to communicate. You can see a screen grab of a CCTV footage in a supermarket here, where a Hezbollah operative has fallen to the ground following this explosion. So as a result of these explosions, several people have been killed, some of them have been linked with Hezbollah, and thousands of them have been injured. This triggered complete chaos and panic across the country. It was something unheard of. An attack of this proportion, this scale, of this magnitude, and using a unique modus operandi, it was unheard of, triggering complete chaos and panic in the country. So now the big question is, why were members of Hezbollah using pagers to communicate? In today's world of smartphones and ultra-fast communication, why were Hezbollah members relying on an outdated communication tool? The answer is very simple. Ever since intelligence agencies stepped up their technical surveillance, most terrorist organizations, especially the top leadership, what they have done is they have stayed away from technology. They take a back step. They go back to the good old methods of communication and almost abandon all forms of modern communication, given the capabilities of intelligence agencies. See, when it comes to intelligence gathering, be it any intelligence agency in the world, be it the CIA, the National Security Agency of the US, the Mossad, the Shin Bet of Israel, or even India's RAW for that matter, and Intelligence Bureau and NTRO. Any such intelligence agency will have tremendous capabilities with regard to technical interception. Generally, intelligence agencies, they collect intelligence through various sources. One would be human intelligence, or HUM-INT, where they place human assets on the ground, where human operatives, intelligence operatives, infiltrate into the target groups to generate ground level intelligence, which is considered to be the most effective, most reliable intelligence. They also rely on TechInt, technical intelligence, from various technical sources. Could be from satellites, through high resolution satellite images, or through drone based surveillance, or even through interception of communication. So So all forms of communication can be intercepted, from your landline phones to mobile phones to all the traffic on the internet. For example, look at the Five Eyes alliance of the Western countries, which includes US, Canada, UK, Australia and New Zealand. This intelligence gathering initiative of these 5 Western democracies, these agencies, they have the capability to intercept almost every form of electronic and digital communication, from satellite phones to your mobile phones and the entire internet traffic. So every message, every mail you send, every electronic device that you use can be intercepted, the communication can be hacked, and even malware can be planted on those devices, right? You might have heard of the Pegasus scandal that hit countries around the world, including in India, where allegations came up that intelligence agencies were using a very advanced spyware linked with an Israeli cybersecurity firm, which would allow not just interception and surveillance, but it could even allow planting of malware on the device, through which the hackers can gain remote access and remotely control the device to manipulate its functioning, to switch on the cameras, the mics, and to even manipulate the control systems if a computer is linked with a major industrial function, manipulate the operations of a plant, leading to even the physical destruction of a plant. So in today's world of cyber warfare, cyber espionage, such remote hacks and gaining remote access to carry out a physical attack is very much possible, and we have already seen many such incidents happen in the past. So given this, terrorist groups and the leaders of terrorist organizations, even intelligence operatives in many cases, what they do is, to avoid any surveillance, to avoid being tracked, they move away from technology. For example, you would have heard about Osama bin Laden, when he was eventually found in Abbottabad in Pakistan and assassinated by American special forces. It was discovered that Osama bin Laden managed to evade the CIA and US agencies for almost a decade by largely staying away from modern technology. Right? The only communication device that Osama bin Laden would use was a burner phone, a very outdated, rudimentary phone, which would be used for some time, maybe just for one call, and then it would be disposed. So generally, terrorist organizations, intelligence operatives, even organized criminals, they rely on such burner phones, which are the initial generation of your mobile phones, used only for one call from a different location and then disposed of, so that the location can't be traced, the communication can't be intercepted. Because in today's smartphones with GPS, intelligence agencies can track your location, monitor your activities by even planting malware, controlling the functioning of the device, even switching on cameras, switching on the mic to listen to the conversation. So given these risks, most of the terrorist leaders, terrorist organizations, and even intelligence operatives stay away from technology. And that is the reason why Hezbollah continued to rely on pagers. As you know, pager was one of the initial modes of communication that came up in the late 80s and early 90s. A text-based communication essentially, and it mainly relies on radio frequencies. It doesn't have any location tracking devices or sensors on it. And also intercepting such a device by using modern interception technology is quite challenging and difficult as well. So that is why Hezbollah preferred an obsolete communication technology, a low-tech device like a pager. Now the question is, can pagers be hacked? Can it be made to explode remotely? See, please understand, when it comes to the world of electronic digital communication, everything is hackable. I am quoting Elon Musk over here. Once he recently stated with regard to India's EVM controversy that anything which is electronic and digital can be hacked. Everything is hackable, and in many ways he's correct. But the method of hacking, the way in which you hack into the device, the way in which you can access the device, or the way in which you can manipulate the hacked device, it changes. So pagers, though they are obsolete, they rely on radio frequency communication. Yes, it can be hacked. Technically, yes, it is possible. With the right interception equipment, you can hack into the frequency and you can read the communication, maybe even plant messages on the device as well. So this is definitely possible. It is also possible to gain remote access and manipulate the processor and the battery function. So remotely the hacker can gain control over the device, manipulate manipulating the processor, its functioning, pushing it to heat up and leading to battery malfunction. So these pagers also consist of either lithium batteries, very similar to your smartphones which contain lithium ion batteries, or some of the pagers consist AAA batteries as well. So overheating of the device, the processor and the battery, can lead to a minor explosion. Even in smartphones you have heard that overheating caused explosion of phones. It resulted in a fire. People have been injured, and in some rare cases people have lost their lives when mobile phones have exploded. Correct? So theoretically this is a possibility. But however, if you look at the visuals that came from Lebanon yesterday, if you look at the number of deaths that have occurred, the kind of injuries that have happened, right? Because I've taken a look at this in detail, they are not consistent with a battery explosion. Such a battery explosion on such a small device will cause very minor damage. Even let's say if you have placed the pager in your pocket, a shirt pocket or your pant pocket, and if it were to explode due to overheating, let's say, the kind of injury which will be reported is quite minimal, right, which can be easily handled or treated. But if you look at the nature of injuries reported, if you go through the visuals circulating on social media, the injuries are quite severe. From injuries to limbs, to injuries to internal organs, severe bleeding amongst the victims has been reported. So this doesn't match the explosion which could be a result of a battery overheating. So there is an inconsistency here in this story. So that is why experts believe that this was not a regular cyber hack. It was not a case of the device being hacked, remotely controlled to heat up the processor and lead the battery to explode. That wouldn't have killed people with such severe injuries. So something more sinister was planned by whoever carried out the attack. And fingers are being pointed towards a supply chain attack. The theory is that, which has been promoted by even popular media outlets like New York Times, BBC and others, is that they have credible sources who have informed them that most likely Israeli intelligence agency Mossad, it basically interfered with the very production process of these pagers. See, Mossad and Israeli agencies are known for their covert capabilities and their influence operations and their intelligence operations around the world. So definitely with regard to capabilities, Israeli agencies, they possess the capabilities, they have the resources, more importantly, they have the intent. So what's being speculated is that most likely the pagers were tampered with. They were meddled right at the production stage. Maybe through very credible human intelligence, through human operatives, Israel figured out, maybe Mossad figured out from where Hezbollah was procuring the pagers. And either it worked with that company. Right now fingers are being pointed towards a Taiwanese company. Based on the images that are circulating, a few experts are pointing out that this pager was manufactured by a Taiwanese manufacturer called Gold Apollo. And also please understand, in today's world where pagers are not used, there are very few manufacturers. So it's quite easy to, to be able to meddle or tamper with the manufacturing process. So the theory is that in the supply chain itself, maybe at the production level or when the pagers were being transported and distributed to Hezbollah, somewhere in the supply chain, Israeli agencies might have interrupted and tampered with the devices by placing a miniature explosive. In each device, in the hardware itself, a possible manipulation could have been done where the device has been tampered with and a miniature explosive has been placed with a remotely triggered detonator. That is how this large-scale attack could have been possible, because remember, it was a simultaneous attack. Is that clear? So maybe the pagers contained a miniature explosive which was placed either during production or somewhere in the supply chain. Essentially, the hardware itself was manipulated, and along with a remote trigger, right, the device could be detonated at a precise time and a simultaneous explosion attack could have been carried out. So this is the stuff of your Hollywood movies, spy thrillers, right, or the popular web series that exist. But that is the reason why this attack is unprecedented in its scale, its intent, and the design. Generally, when it comes to supply chain tampering, right, there are concerns about meddling or tampering with electronic digital devices at the production stage, but usually this is to do with the software. You might have heard about concerns about Chinese companies. Western governments, even India, has concerns about Chinese companies like Huawei, ZTE, which dominate the global telecom market. So there are security concerns here that these companies are very close to Chinese intelligence and the PLA. So there is every likelihood that they might install security backdoors, which are essentially software based tampering, which could allow remote hacking and remote access, which could be used for a cyber attack or for cyber espionage. Similar concerns exist with American tech giants as well, from Microsoft to Apple to Google to other social media firms. There are allegations that the National Security Agency, the premier technical intelligence agency of the US, works with the US tech giants to tamper the platforms, the softwares, which could give access to American intelligence agencies. So usually when we talk of a supply chain attack or a supply chain tampering, it is usually done with softwares which could give the attacker access to hack into the system or the network, plant malware, carry out espionage, or even manipulate the operations to carry out a cyber attack, to engage in cyber warfare. But a hardware tampering is unheard of on this scale. See, Israel has a history of doing it. Back in 1990s, I remember one incident where a top Hamas terrorist was assassinated by Shin Bet, the domestic intelligence agency of Israel, by tampering with the mobile phone. The mobile phone was made to explode, resulting in the death of this extremist leader. So Israel has a history of doing it, right? And who doesn't remember the Stuxnet worm that created shockwaves around the world in what was one of the first publicly known large-scale cyber warfare exercised by Israel in collaboration with the United States. As Iran had accelerated its nuclear weapons program, somewhere between 2005 to 2012, it was reported that Israel and US, in a joint covert operation, had developed an advanced cyber weapon, offensive malware, essentially a malicious software called Stuxnet, a computer worm, which would primarily target the PLC, so the programmable logic controllers, which are part of control systems. And the specific target in this operation were the control systems that controlled the nuclear centrifuges of Iran. So this covert cyber warfare operation came out in the public domain by 2010, and fingers were pointed at US and Israel. There is considerable proof and evidence that exists as well to link this cyber warfare against Iran with US and Israeli intelligence agencies. According to reports, this entire operation was codenamed as Operation Olympic Games, started by the George Bush government in collaboration with Israeli intelligence, led by the NSA, the National Security Agency of US, which pioneers in cyber warfare, in collaboration with IDF's Cyber Unit 8200, which is a well-known, sophisticated cyber unit of the Israeli Defense Forces. The program was further accelerated by Barack Obama, especially between 2008 and 2010, and this cyber war successfully penetrated into Israeli computers and control systems, Iranian computers and control systems that control the nuclear centrifuges of Iran, especially computers running on Windows operating system, running a control system software by Siemens, was targeted and intercepted by this malware, and it essentially gave remote access to the hacker. And eventually, the hackers, they took control of the systems, they manipulated the operation of a nuclear centrifuge, made the centrifuge spin out of control, and thus leading to the physical destruction of nuclear centrifuges, which is used to enrich uranium to weapons grade uranium. So there were such attacks reported in Iran as a result of Stuxnet under Operation Olympic Games. So clearly this establishes the covert and cyber capabilities of Israel and its intelligence agencies. The intent is definitely there. So more than this being just a regular hack and a battery explosion, it appears to be a supply chain attack where the hardware was manipulated maybe by planting a miniature explosive in all the devices that was headed towards Hezbollah. This would require tremendous efforts as part of the intelligence operation, from human intelligence regarding who's the supplier, who's producing those pagers, right? When the shipments are headed, where they can intercept them, manipulate and tamper the device by planting an explosive with a remotely triggered detonator and executing the operation with precision. This is something which is unprecedented, and the scale is something which is remarkable. But however, it raises some very disturbing questions as well. Because now Iran, which is the main backer and sponsor of these proxies, has been repeatedly embarrassed by Israel. Recently I told you that the chief of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, was taken out by an Israeli attack. That too when Ismail Haniyeh was a guest in Tehran. You might remember Iranian former President Ibrahim Raisi passed away in a helicopter crash recently. Even there, a conspiracy theory exists that Israel might have been behind the helicopter crash, but there is no proof or evidence to indicate that. So following the death of Ibrahim Raisi, Iran got a new president, and during the inauguration of the new president, the chief of Hamas and top leaders, commanders of Hezbollah were invited by Iran. So when Ismail Haniyeh stepped out of Qatar, where he had a safe haven, when he attended the presidential inauguration and was about to return back to Qatar, the place where he stayed was hit by a targeted missile that took out Ismail Haniyeh, the chief of Hamas. And this was major embarrassment for Iran, because in its capital, that too when a high profile event was taking place, and a guest, a dignitary who was invited by the state of Iran, was assassinated by Israel. So this already caused massive embarrassment. Many top IRGC officials have been assassinated. In fact, in the past, even Iranian nuclear scientists and top Iranian generals have been assassinated by both Israel and United States through their covert operations. There have been targeted killings of Iranian nuclear scientists to slow down the nuclear weapons program. Israel has even pioneered these sticky bombs which are stuck on cars targeting Iranian nuclear scientists, Iranian generals. US has used armed drones to take out top Iranian generals and intelligence operatives. So repeatedly Iran has been embarrassed by these setbacks. In fact, recently Israel even launched a major attack on a Houthi base in Yemen at Hodeida port, and it has decimated Hamas and its capability to launch attacks, and it has hit back at Hezbollah. It recently killed one of the top commanders, as we discussed, and repeated setbacks to Iran has caused a lot of embarrassment. It raises questions about the capabilities of Iran, undermines Iran's influence. So this might push Iran to do something which is drastic. Hezbollah would definitely seek revenge given the scale of this attack. The Houthis have already scaled up their attacks, and Hamas is also gearing up for a prolonged conflict. And Israel also will not take it lying down. It will scale up the war, and US will continue backing Israel with any support it needs. So what we are staring at is a potential escalation, a further escalation of the conflict, which could consume this entire region with conflict and devastation. And this could have serious consequences for the region, for the world, and for India. Now coming to my last point, which I mentioned at the beginning, this pager attack which we have seen in Lebanon and Syria raises a very important humanitarian question about the rules of war, the rules of engagement. See, in case of a conflict, right, there are few international conventions, humanitarian laws and customary international laws that govern the rules of war and rules of engagement. Anything which is in violation is treated as a war crime, a crime against humanity, human right violations, which could even lead to prosecution through International Criminal Court. Now this particular attack that we have seen is a classic example of an indiscriminate attack. Now let's assume Israel is behind this. Of course, the answer seems obvious, but let's not rush to conclusions without any valid proof. So assuming Israel is the one which carried out the pager explosions, assuming it was a covert intelligence operation targeted at Hezbollah, see, we need to recognize that for Israel, Hezbollah is a legitimate target, right? Because they are currently in a state of war. But Israel is not in a state of war with Lebanon and the people of Lebanon, right? Israel is in a state of war with Hamas. It is in a state of conflict with the Houthis. So Hezbollah, Houthis and Hamas, their fighters are legitimate targets for Israel. Israel can justify that it's fighting terrorism. This is still valid under international law. But in the name of targeting an extremist group, you can't go on and use indiscriminate force through an indiscriminately planned operation where civilians might be injured and killed as well. Now imagine these 3,000 explosions that have been reported, they occurred in shopping complexes, supermarkets, on the city streets, in crowded areas, even in cars where some of the Hezbollah fighters were driving in traffic. Imagine the outcome. There would be civilians nearby, women and children. In fact, according to reports, one child has already lost its life. There would be innocent civilians, non-combatants. So they could get killed and injured as well. And this is prohibited under international law. So there is rule number 12 under the Geneva Conventions, Additional Protocol 1 of 1977, and also as part of customary international law, which prohibits indiscriminate attacks. So essentially, military targets which are legitimate can be targeted. Let's say one army targeting another army, or an armed force targeting terrorist outfits. These are legitimate military targets because both are combatants. But you can't use indiscriminate force to kill civilians, to harm civilians. You can't drop a massive bomb, like let's say cluster bombs or even a nuclear bomb, saying that I'm fighting the enemy, I'm fighting terrorists. And in the process, if civilians get killed in large numbers, that is a classic example of an indiscriminate attack. So amongst the 3,000 people who have been injured, many of them might be innocent civilians, bystanders. And this will call for action against Israel. If Israel indeed carried out this indiscriminate attack, it cannot justify such a large-scale attack saying that we were only targeting Hezbollah extremists. Only Hezbollah fighters were harmed and killed. That can't be done, because if civilians have been injured and killed, this becomes a strong case at International Criminal Court under the Rome Statute, as it constitutes a war crime according to Rule 12 of Geneva Conventions Additional Protocol 1 of 1977. Israel is already facing charges of genocide at International Court of Justice. It is already facing investigation at ICC, and ICC is likely to issue arrest warrants against Netanyahu and his war cabinet and the top Israeli officials for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Now, this could further add momentum to those cases, and this is something that needs to be looked at as well. Can states justify indiscriminate attacks, indiscriminate use of force in the name of fighting a war and terrorism? Can they go to the extent of harming civilians? Can they use such tactics, such methods, where even civilians could be harmed and injured? There is no way you can control the attack. There is no way Israel could have controlled who would have the pager when the detonation was done. Maybe a small child or maybe civilians could be handling the pager as well, or civilians, bystanders could be present next to the target, right? So they could get injured and killed. It would have definitely happened on the ground. So this accounts for a classic case of indiscriminate attack, which is prohibited under international customary law. So this is the point I wanted to raise, which otherwise has been largely ignored by your mainstream media and by most of the analysts. So kindly think about this. Let me know what you think in the comments. We will continue to track this story in the coming days. And do let me know if the session was helpful in your comments and through your likes, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That is it for now. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.